Welcome to the Empowered Christian Woman Podcast. My name is Jeannette. I'm a pastor, women's leadership coach, and self-proclaimed Jesus feminist. I'm on a mission to inspire and equip women everywhere to own our voice, speak up, create, and lead wherever God calls. Because when women rise, everyone wins. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm so grateful that you have tuned in today. Thanks for being with me on this journey. I love hearing from those of you who reach out to me to let me know what you're taking away from the podcast and how you're processing it. And so please keep doing that. Please keep sharing your insights and your thoughts. Today, I want to talk about managing leadership anxiety. So the last episode, we tackled the stereotype that women are too emotional to lead or that they are more emotional than men. And what we found was that modern research and theology, in neither of those places does it support the stereotype that women are just too emotional. In fact, emotions are a natural, God-given, wonderful part of what it means to be human. And so today I want to talk specifically about managing the emotion of anxiety. And I'm kind of taking a little bit of a shift on this, and then I'm talking about leadership anxiety. But what I'm going to share really can apply to any anxiety in life, quite honestly. So leadership anxiety, though, I'm using that term because I would assert that you cannot lead without having to deal with the anxiety that is going to come up as a result of taking on a leadership responsibility. I once heard Michael Hyatt say, leadership is just simply about growing your capacity to manage anxiety. Let me say that again. He said, leadership is about growing your capacity to manage anxiety. When he said that, it stopped me in my tracks because I knew that he was right. I was like, yes, that's exactly been my experience of growing as a leader. It has been about learning to manage greater and greater levels of anxiety. Because if you lead, you will face uncertainty and setbacks. You'll make mistakes. You will have losses. And the greater your leadership influence and the greater your leadership capacity, or like the more people you lead, the more people are going to be watching you as you do all of those things. The more people are watching you fail or watching you make a mistake or wrestle with uncertainties. And that in itself creates anxiety. So the question isn't if you'll experience leadership anxiety. The question is, how will you handle it? I believe that the reason we see so many high-profile leaders, the megachurch pastors and the big-name leaders, really shipwrecking their life, and we find out that they're doing like these crazy things, drinking and affairs and just all kinds of things. I think a lot of that stems from not actually properly managing the normal day-to-day leadership anxiety that comes about and resisting it or buffering with things like pornography or alcohol or being so anxious that then you're treating your people in abusive ways. Like all of those things happen when people are not dealing with the leadership anxiety, the challenges that come when they build huge organizations and they have a lot weighing on their shoulders. So that's one reason I think this is important, because I think this is at the heart of how we see that leaders shipwreck their life. But you don't have to be a mega church pastor in order to experience this. You don't have to be a corporate leader in order to shipwreck your life because you're not dealing with the anxiety that comes in leading. Whether you're managing a team or you're managing a family, or you're managing an entire church. There's going to be anxiety along the way. And learning to recognize that and deal with it in a healthy way is super important. It's actually essential to effective, great leadership. As I record this podcast, it's March 2025, and it's been 5 years since COVID-19 turned life upside down. Those early days were a whirlwind of uncertainty and fear and figuring things out on the fly. And then we fast forward to today. Major disruptions aren't rare events anymore. Whether it's a global health crisis or political turmoil or rapid technological shifts, leaders are constantly navigating a world where big changes can happen anytime, anywhere. And so that brings me to this important truth that leadership is not for the faint of heart. Leadership has always been about guiding change, but today it's about more than that. It's about leading through frenzied disruption, which will continue to happen and will come when we least expect it. The moment you step into a leadership role is the moment that you sign up for uncertainty, challenges, and high expectations from people all around you. People will look to you not just for decisions, but for stability, for clarity, for solutions in situations where often there are no easy answers. And that responsibility, it creates pressure. It creates stress. It creates anxiety. We all wish that we could just get rid of anxiety altogether, right? But here's the truth. Anxiety in leadership isn't the enemy. Anxiety can actually be an invitation. You see, anxiety has a purpose. It pushes us to prepare. It can fuel innovation as we realize we need to create and think of new solutions. It can heighten our awareness to help us focus on what's before us. But when it spirals out of control, especially because we've ignored it or we haven't managed it well, that's when it holds us back. That's when it can lead us into indecision and analysis paralysis. That's when it can lead to exhaustion and burnout. So the goal isn't to eliminate anxiety, because let's be real, that's not going to happen. But it's to recognize when it's actually helping and when it's starting to take over and it's hindering us and perhaps creating a situation where we are becoming less effective because we're not managing it well. Maura Aarons Meal is the author of a book called The Anxious Achiever, and she shines a light on leadership anxiety. She says that it's very common among high achievers, and she calls it a hidden problem in our workplaces. She says, like, anxiety in our workplace is just there in plain sight, but it's ignored. And she talks about a familiar type of leader that she calls the anxious achiever. This leader is someone who, on the surface, they seem calm and confident and in control. They get things done. They make decisions. They carry a heavy load without showing cracks. But beneath the surface, where other people can't really see, there's a different story. Beneath the surface, there is self-doubt and overthinking every decision. There is overwork to try and quiet that anxiety, try and work our way out of it. There's avoiding tough emotions instead of processing them. And there can be coping mechanisms like perfectionism or people pleasing, or lots of things that I call buffering, like scrolling on social media or having an extra glass of wine. All of those things that are coping mechanisms that are not really effective at helping us move through the anxiety. And for a while, these habits can fuel success. But if we don't deal with that anxiety in a healthy way, over time, it will lead to burnout and exhaustion. I know this because I have been that leader. My own anxious achiever experience came in 2008. during the recession in the US. I was a brand new first-time executive pastor then. I was leading a portable church through a capital stewardship campaign. We had just purchased a $6 million property, and then boom, the US economy crashed. And suddenly I was new in this role, and I was responsible for keeping the church afloat, for making payroll, making sure the bills got paid, holding everything together while keeping the staff and helping to keep our congregation focused on our mission and our vision, which really was to reach our community for Christ and to serve our community. On the outside, I looked confident and steady and in control. I was making decisions. I was casting vision. I was leading strong. But underneath, I constantly had this low level pressure and anxiety. I felt the pressure of every decision, of every financial challenge, of never knowing if this would be the month that we might have to eliminate some staff positions. And in those early days, quite frankly, I really didn't have many tools or experience for managing that kind of leadership stress. And it led me ultimately to exhaustion and a period of really what I would call clinical burnout. During that time frame, I was also dealing with some leadership anxiety in the form of academic responsibilities. I was pursuing a graduate education in theology. And so I was leading the church through that difficult time while staying up until 2:00 in the morning, writing theological papers. So I learned a lot in that season of burnout. And one of the things that I began to recognize was that I had to learn some better tools for managing leadership anxiety, because I realized that the anxiety that came along with leading didn't mean I was an ineffective leader. I wasn't doing anything wrong because I had anxiety. That was a natural byproduct of leadership, of stepping into the unknown, of creating change, of being responsible for organizations and people. So I knew that wasn't going to go away. Anxiety was still going to come, and I needed to figure out, how do I manage this in a better way so that I don't end up burned out and exhausted, and so that leadership can be enjoyable, so that I can step into the calling that God has given me with some enjoyment instead of always trying to resist the anxiety. So what I want to share with you today are just some tools that I have learned over the years and tools that I use even today. And as a matter of fact, I'm using these tools right now every day. As many of you know, I have made some big changes in my life, and I resigned as the executive pastor at Seneca Creek Community Church. I am now a full-time entrepreneur, which comes with lots of risks, lots of unknowns and uncertainties. And I realize now I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety every day. I have to utilize these tools to keep my mind in the right place so that the anxiety doesn't take over and that I can lead through it effectively. So all that said, 4 steps that I want to share with you. I've broken these down. This is what I call the calm framework. The 4 steps, and let me tell you what they are, and then we'll dive into them. The first is C, catch the anxiety. The second is A, assess your thoughts. The third is L, lean into the discomfort. And then M is move with intention. So let's dive in. The first is catch the anxiety. Before you can manage the anxiety, you have to recognize it and name it. So often as leaders, we're moving so fast, and we do feel the weight that there's another meeting to go to. There's someone else that's waiting on us. There's a to-do list to be done, that we just keep pushing through. And we may not even be fully aware that just below the surface, our body is screaming to us that we are incredibly anxious. Now, oftentimes, if you ask a leader, are you anxious? They'll say, no, I've got a lot going on, but I'm not anxious. Or no, I'm just under a lot of pressure. It's not anxiety. And I think I would have been that way when I look back at 2008. I would have been like, no, this is just normal pressures of leadership. I wouldn't call it anxiety. But here's what I want to say. Call it whatever you want, label it however you'd like. But if it's pressure, that's a level of anxiety. If there's some overwhelm, friends, that's a type of anxiety. If it's concern about how is that conversation going to go, that's anxiety. So let's just start to recognize we can label it whatever we want and we don't have to call it anxiety, but there's lots of different types of anxious thoughts that come along with leadership. So recognize it and name it. As we name it, instead of saying, I am anxious, say, I am experiencing anxiety or I am experiencing overwhelm. This small shift gives you distance from the emotion. It's super important because it helps us to recognize that we can step out of what we're experiencing and begin to observe it kind of as the outside observer and begin to make sense of it. And so it's not, I am anxious. It's, hey, here it is. I'm experiencing anxiety again. I'm experiencing overwhelm again. Name it, notice it. And then the second step is assess the thoughts that are creating the anxiety. So every feeling, every emotion is created from the thoughts in our head. Okay. If you're anxious, it's because of what you're thinking. Now, when I share this with leaders, oftentimes they're like, no, it's not me. It's actually what that person is really doing. No, it's actually that we are in a season of political turmoil and this is going to affect my friends, or we are experiencing financial problems and this is going to affect me. It's those things that are causing me anxiety. So stick with me here. So yes, there are things happening outside of you. There are circumstances and there are facts in those circumstances. But then we have thoughts about what's happening, and it's those thoughts that create our anxious feelings. If it was the circumstance that created our anxious feelings, then we would all have the same feelings about the circumstance. Today, here in the US, we've got a very politically charged season with a lot of different polarizing opinions. Some people are incredibly anxious right now, but others are really happy about what's going on. Same situation, right? But they're seeing it from very different lens. They're having different thoughts about it. Now, I'm not here to tell you one thought is right and one is wrong. I'm just trying to show you that it is your thoughts that create the anxiety. Because if it was the circumstance, then we would all have the exact same feelings about the circumstance. So assess your thoughts, write down all your thoughts, what's in your head, get it all out on paper, and then start to look at those thoughts one by one, start to counter them and just say, first of all, is this reality? Is this true? Is this helpful? Is there another way that I could look at it? Would I be willing to let go of this thought? Like, is this thought maybe it's not even true? It's not even accurate? What thoughts can I bring to replace some of these anxious thoughts? So let me give you some examples. So perhaps you have a thought that I have to give a really important presentation and I'm going to mess this up. I am just worried that if I don't get this right, there's going to be big implications. Okay. And you start to realize, oh, that thought's making me more anxious. And how am I going to show up to that presentation when I have this idea that, everything is riding on how I perform? Well, you're probably not going to perform as well. So you could say, you know what? I'm going to prepare and I'm going to go into this with this thought. I am prepared and I will do my best. Right. And so every time you have that anxious thought that says, I'm going to mess this up, and if this presentation isn't perfect, we're really in trouble, you say, no, set that aside. I am prepared and I will do my best. I am prepared and I will do my best. Maybe you're in a situation where you're like, I just don't even know what to do. I don't know what the right answer is. Okay. You could say, I'm going to change that. And my new thought is going to be, I can figure this out step by step. I may not have all the answers, but I can figure it out step by step. And then I think for us as believers, we have the entire Bible filled with promises and hopes from God about how we have power that we can draw on beyond ourselves. And so for me, when I get into situations where I'm feeling overwhelmed or anxious, that maybe there's uncertainty or I've never done this before, I remind myself that God is for me, that God has led me to this place and that He will be with me. In full transparency, as I've stepped out into this new season where I'm now an entrepreneur and I've got to figure out my entire business plan and I have to learn new technology and everything is new. And it's exciting because I'm a creator and I love creating and I love working with people. But there's also a lot of anxiety because where I had been leading for the last 10 years, I knew that space. I was comfortable there. I knew how to be an executive pastor. I'm in a new space now as an entrepreneur and an executive coach, and it's all new. And I have been experiencing a lot of low level anxiety. And so almost every day, I wake up and I start to notice that the anxiety is there and I name it. I look at my thoughts and then I replace them. And so one of the thoughts that I've begun routinely replacing in the morning, my anxious thoughts with are, God has led me to this place and God has never let me down. God has never abandoned me. He will not abandon me now. I have everything that I need right now and I am fine. And so I can take my next steps with Jesus. Instead of like thinking about the unknown future and the uncertainty, I'm trying to keep focused in the present because the truth of the matter is that I am okay. I do have everything I need and I can figure it out one step at a time with God's help. So that is step number 2. Assess the thoughts and start to replace those thoughts with more useful, empowering, faith-filled thoughts. Then the third step is L, lean into the discomfort. This is a big one because I have found we don't do this naturally and we're not taught how to do this. So lean into the discomfort means we've got to stop resisting the anxiety. Here's the thing about anxiety. The more we resist it, the stronger it gets. If we try to push it away or ignore it or power through it, that just adds another layer of anxiety and stress on top of what we're already feeling. So how do we lean into the discomfort? Well, the way we do that is we recognize that feelings, emotions are simply vibrations in our body. I'm going to say that again. Anxiety is just a vibration in your body. It's not dangerous. It won't hurt you. Instead of pushing it away, let your body feel it. Just let it be there and lean into it. So here's how this works. You have captured the anxiety and you have named it. You have assessed your thoughts and you know what thoughts are creating that anxiety. And now you want to take a moment and just let the anxiety be there. Breathe through it. So what I typically do is I'll close my eyes and I'll take a few deep breaths and I'll start to like scan through my body. Where do I feel this anxiety? For me, oftentimes my chest is tight. My jaw, oftentimes I clench my jaw. I'll notice that. And so I'll start to try and relax my jaw and breathe slow and deep. But I'll scan my entire body and just try and relax my body. Feel the sensations, feel the tightness. Maybe there's a knot in my stomach. Whatever it is, feel the feelings. And it will take a few minutes, but typically, quite honestly, it's only a few minutes. And then I start to feel some relief. And the reason I do is because by allowing, instead of resisting the vibrations, allowing them to move through your body resets your nervous system. And so it helps to steady you and to calm you. One of the practices that you can try as well when you realize you're feeling anxiety in your body is what's called boxed breathing. And this is simply you inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds, hold it 4 seconds, and then repeat. And so that's where you kind of have this box, 4 seconds, all the way around, and then you do it again. And so if you do several rounds of this box breathing, this has been shown to reduce the fight or flight, fear response, the anxiety, and to bring your body and your nervous system down into a regulated, calm space. So that's the L. Instead of resisting it, you want to lean in to the discomfort. And then once you've kind of regulated your nervous system, then is the M. Then you move with intention, realizing it's okay that you've got some anxiety and you are noticing it and naming it and feeling it and choosing your thoughts intentionally. And now what do you want to do? Instead of getting stuck and spiraling, ask yourself, what is my next best step that I can take right now? Is it to sit down and work on that proposal that I've been procrastinating on because I'm nervous about it? Is it to sit down and write another chapter on my book that I haven't been doing because really underneath of it is this great anxiety that I'm actually not able to do it? Is it that I need to take a walk and just clear my head and get some space between the challenges? Do I need to just sit down and pray and let God's love and grace fill my heart before I even try to keep moving forward? Do I need to call my team and set up a meeting and be honest and say, here are some challenges we're facing, and I need your best thinking on this. What is your next best step? But don't try to figure out that next step until you've taken the first 3 steps to get to this place where you can move with intention. The goal isn't to be fearless, but it's to act from wisdom, not fear. So realize anxiety is just a sign that you are being stretched and that you are growing, that you are stepping into something that really matters. And growth always comes with discomfort. So as I bring this to a close, I want to reframe for you the idea of anxiety as something to be feared or to be avoided, or something that maybe means we're weak or that we have failed. What if anxiety is a leadership ally? What if anxiety isn't a weakness at all, but it is just a signal? It's a signal that there is something at stake that you really care about. It's a signal that you are stepping into something really meaningful and you are growing because you're doing something you haven't done before. And you're stepping into a space where you have to trust God at greater and deeper levels than you've ever done before. Great leaders don't ignore or push away anxiety. They learn how to move through it using tools to help them be prepared and using it as a way to be more innovative and to be aware of it without letting it take control. So the next time leadership anxiety creeps in, I want you to remember the calm framework. Catch the anxiety. Recognize that that's what's happening to you and label it. Call it what it is. Is it an overwhelm? Is it a pressure? Is it a worry about a relationship or a person? What's happening? Catch the anxiety. Then assess the thoughts. What thoughts are running around in your mind that are causing the anxiety? Write them all down. Look at them. Are they true? Are they just fear-based? Are they useful? And start to find other empowering, faith-filled thoughts that you can replace those fear-based thoughts with. And then lean into the discomfort. Stop. Breathe deeply. Just let your body feel anxiety. Let your body feel overwhelm. It's not dangerous. I promise you, if you will try this within a couple of minutes, you will feel better. And you will have a clearer mind to be able to figure out your next step so that you can then move with intention, act from a place of wisdom, not fear. Leadership isn't about getting rid of anxiety. It's about building the capacity to hold it and still lead with clarity and confidence. If you are looking for a quick, practical way to reset when anxiety creeps in, I've got something for you. I want to encourage you to head over to my website, JeannetteCochran.com/reset. and grab my free guide called 5-Minute Reset Rituals for Ministry Leaders. This is a resource that I designed from my many years of leading and experiencing just stress, overwhelm, busyness. There are 5 quick practices that you can try out to help you lead with strength and not stress, even when you only have 5 minutes. In this guide, you're going to find strategies that will help you find instant relief from overwhelm. They are biblically rooted resets, and they're practical, just 5-minute resets that you can implement on any day to help you stay grounded and energized, even on your busiest days. So I will put a link to that in the show notes, and you can download it there or head over to JeannetteCochran.com/reset and give yourself the gift of leading with calm, clarity, and confidence, no matter what comes your way. You've got this, empowered leader. Thanks for being with me today. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you will share this with someone else that you know, maybe who's leading through a time of great pressure and is dealing with some stress and anxiety. Share this with them, and then keep rising in your leadership, because we know that when women rise, everyone wins. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Empowered Christian Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share it with other women in your network. For more information about me and the work that I do, check out JeannetteCochran.com. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. You can find me on Facebook at JCochranCoach or Instagram at Jeannette.Cochran.